Hey there, Veronica.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I am slightly confused though. I
What's
go
wrong?
on boxofficemojo.com, a website I visit all the time, and I see that Venom is it The Last Dance or whatever is
Yeah.
number one at the box office. And
Yeah.
but we agreed to talk about Heretic.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, this episode's about Heretic, but the American public did, choose Venom, The Last Dance as the number one movie.
Mhm.
But as you know, our podcast is about following the will of the American people and seeing what is number one at the box office that weekend. But
Mhm.
here we are
Famously.
currently in mid-November 2024, and sometimes America's wrong. Sometimes America makes stupid, destructive
America.
decisions.
Wrong? John, America is
I
wrong?
know-
The best country in the world is wrong?
I know it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to hear here in November 10th, 2024. But sometimes America makes stupid decisions. And we just decided this week, let's not follow their will for no other reason. And you know what? To be fair, sometimes it's not really the fault of the American people. Sometimes the studios spend years not giving the American people good enough movies or seeing the types of movies that the American people want, and instead only care about making more and more profits for themselves. And so that leads to the American people making terrible decisions and making fucking Venom 3 number one at the box office for at least 4 more years. Or something.
But we're all happy Trump won, right? Woohoo!
Oh, yeah. MAGA for life.
Yay! Toot toot!
Toot toot.
Wow. You did not, your ears did not deceive you, dear listener. This is not Pod Save America. This is Box Office Time Machine, your neighborhood friendly podcast about the number one movie at the box office. Most times.
Yep. And yeah, it's been a week. It's been a week. But you know what? The same way we treated Roman Polanski in our recent Chinatown episode, I think we're going to leave all discussions of any unpleasantness in the room to the beginning of the episode and move on to talking about some fun stuff like the movie Heretic. And then maybe we're going to do some catch-ups on some movies that Veronica saw earlier, but I have seen recently. Just conversations about fun stuff that will make us feel good.
Yay. That's nice. Self-care. Cookie Monster says self-care is important.
I was going to introduce ourselves. I feel like we didn't really do that.
I introduced the podcast. I guess I didn't introduce us.
Oh, that's true.
But yes, I'm Veronica. Who are you?
I'm John.
Also, just to address the stilted elephant in the room, John can't see me. I can see John, like the ever seeing whatever Wizard of Oz. A plug probably for a Wicked episode coming up. And John can't see me.
Yeah, just a further sign of a world falling apart. Veronica's internet is not doing well. So she has her camera off for me. Obviously, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can see her because she's filming herself. But I can't. So if she flips me off at any time during this podcast, I won't know. So don't do that, Veronica.
That's a fun idea. Thank you for the idea, Jon.
Even if you so massively disagree with my opinion about the movie Heretic, you better not flip me off in secret. Or like do impressions of what my face looks like or something.
Okay. All right. All the ideas have been recorded and will happen if I remember to do them sometime during the podcast.
Okay. Well, to stop giving you bad ideas, let's jump into it. Today we are talking about Heretic, the movie written and directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, the folks behind the original screenplay for A Quiet Place, a movie that had no dialogue, which is fun because I think their dialogue is really good. I'm going to get it right out of the way. Veronica, I liked Heretic.
Hold on. You said it's fun that Quiet Place did not have any dialogue because they're good at writing dialogue.
Fun was wrong. It was more surprising because I did genuinely. Okay. This is primarily a three-hander with people just talking. At the very least, the best parts of the movie are just three people talking. And so, pretty wacky that these guys have a good handle of dialogue, but chose to write a movie where the very premise makes dialogue almost impossible.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. This is going great. I also enjoyed the Heretic, Jon.
Well, okay. So, I'm glad to hear that because it's so much less fun to argue when I can't see your face. So I feel like maybe jumping in on the Quiet Place comparisons are not the best way to jump in. So instead, I'll jump in with the most pressing question. Did you realize while watching the movie that Mormon elder we see in two scenes is Topher Grace?
Yes, I did. The entirety of my Letterboxd review is Topher Grace is useless.
Did you know he was going to be in it?
I did not know he was going to be in it, but I immediately, as an avid watcher of that 70s show, I recognized him immediately. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how we will figure out, like, into the plot. But he never does. I mean, he does to an extent. And I feel like it almost at this point, I kind of want to know. It seems like it's on purpose, right? It's sort of, they give you a relatively known actor and they're like, oh, he will do something. And then he ends up doing nothing, like the useless man that he is.
Now that I realize, well, I did not recognize him in the movie. Maybe I'm a dumb. But I think you are probably right. And we know from, say, the original Ocean's 11 that Topher Grace is a fan of kind of self-deprecating cameos in movies. So I believe he would be the kind of person to find it funny to play a character whose whole purpose is that he has no purpose.
Yeah, I kind of dug it. And to be honest, if they did actually end up using him in the predictable way we thought they could have, it would have been kind of bland. It's like, it's the story of these two women. If we had, like, you know, Eric Foreman march in and like rescue them in the end of the third act, I feel like it would be kind of anticlimactic.
Well, what I was not expecting him to save the day. I was expecting him to get his throat slit. I thought he was going to get super off.
I guess so. Yeah, that's true. But I think, like, you know, you kind of are hoping that maybe, because I guess we can talk about the dynamics of that movie. I think we will probably for quite a bit. But I was reading some of it, the kind of the gender stuff into it. And I don't know whether that was intentional or not, but because and it's kind of mentioned in the movie. So these girls come in to potentially convert a lone man who lives in a kind of like a secluded house into the Mormonism. I was going to say the full name of the church, but I don't want to get confused.
They are from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes, Jesus Christ. Sorry, this is from all I know about Mormonism is mostly from Book of Mormon,
which gets a reference in the movie.
Yeah, and they like it, and I do genuinely hope people like it. Like in that community, in the Mormon community. Anyway, but they are, so because they're young women and they want to be polite, they kind of don't question a lot of the weird stuff that sort of happens because they want to kind of brush it off and be polite. They don't want to cause a fuss. And that is sort of how Hugh Grant lures them farther and farther into his weird game. And I think what I maybe thought could happen with the Topher Grace character is that we would kind of see how effective or not that kind of thing is on a man. And sort of whether that is a different dynamic, like what happens if you were to do this to a man. But that, I mean, I don't know that would have improved the movie necessarily, but that's kind of what I thought could happen because it was Topher Grace. And then eventually, he wasn't. He just wanted to give him a leaflet.
Well, this is a movie that ends with a bunch of women locked in cages. So I don't think gender was free from the mind of the creators.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think personally, I think gender is mostly just one element to kind of fit into the Mr. Reed, the Hugh Grant's character, vision of all religion, as we eventually find out, as purely a vessel for the ability to control other human beings. And gender, certainly in religious history, has been a big part of that. The way for men to control women, particularly young women. But let's back up a bit. Yeah, let's. Oh, do we want to back? We got pretty deep into gender. I don't know. You want to stick with gender?
We can talk gender for a little bit.
You know what? Let's start a bit more broadly. I have a question for you. So this movie we've already spoiled it, but this movie, of course, is about these two young missionaries. They're trapped in this house with this guy who's just the most obnoxious, arrogant atheist dude you've ever talked with on a message board. And he is going to town trying to persuade them of his one true goal of religion, the one truth he's learned about all religion. That is the premise. Mm-hmm. It's a super fun premise for a movie. I have a question for you broadly before we get into the content. Veronica, do you think this movie dips in quality in the second half?
I maybe, like, you know what? It doesn't dip as much as I expected it to. I think for the longest time, in a very good way, I was like, where is he going with this? What is he? And I was genuinely not sure, because I was like, could this be a monster flick? Is there like some devil he's worshiping? Or could it end up being like, I did not anticipate what we ended up getting. And I actually found some of the stuff about the magic trick that was that resurrection quite interesting and surprising. I will say that him being so excited in the age of, let's assume, 60, to have discovered that all religion is just about control is like very like, I'm 14 and this is deep vibes. Like that seems like such a basic thing in retrospect that I don't necessarily maybe have a fix off the top of my head as to how that could have been improved necessarily. Maybe aside from like, it could have been like straight up way more nihilistic about it. And that he just wanted to like enslave people, basically, as he is kind of doing. But I thought it was pretty solid. So I don't think it dips as much as most movies that attempt this do, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I thought I would have loved to hear a little bit more about like, okay, yeah, he's figured this out. What's his motivation? Is it he's just a troll, or is it like I kind of would have liked a line from him. Maybe this would have been too obvious, but a line from him where it's something like, and so now that I've learned this, what else is there for me to do but to become a god to other people, basically? Because that seems like that's kind of what his motivation is. He's realized there is no God. There's just people controlling each other. So now he is controlling other people.
Yeah.
But I think it's. I was thinking about this throughout the movie because it's like in all horror media, horror books, video games, whatever. It's just a true fact that the setup is usually more fun than the resolution. Like a creepy dark hallway is always going to be more interesting than the spooky skeleton at the end of the dark hallway. That's just how it is. And like earlier this summer, we had the movie Longlegs, a movie where it's this great, incredibly taut, incredibly tense, well shot, perfectly edited first half. And then it feels like the movie goes, well, I don't fucking know. And then just becomes a different movie midway through. So I was watching this and I'm sitting there like, how are they going to find a satisfying ending for this? Because like with the promises this movie's made up until this point, like, I don't know what a satisfying ending could have been unless they literally somehow made a statement about religion that was so profound that it blew the minds of everyone in the audience, which is a high goal that they obviously did not meet. How could they possibly meet that?
Yeah.
But that being said, unlike a movie like Longlegs, while I didn't love as much the third act, because I found like all the stuff about her randomly figuring everything out, which is a little less interesting. This movie kept through to like its thematic purpose the whole way through, and so while the first half, which is just them talking, is amazing and excellent and so much fun, and we can talk about the gifts of each actor in the trio. I still enjoyed it even when I felt it dipped, and I don't blame the movie for that because I just don't know what the better ending could have possibly been.
Right. Yeah. I think we're in the same boat. Yeah. And I think that's okay. Sometimes it's good to just I think it didn't overstay its welcome. And I think even in the third act, there were some fun stuff. I actually liked her figuring out some of the stuff. I liked her figuring out the magic trick, like, oh, you replace the body and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. I still thought the suspense, the way they designed the house was very cool, and the way that we kind of keep discovering these secret spaces, and you're still not quite sure where she is in the space because she probably would not be sure where she is, like going up and down stairwells and like into doors. And I thought all of that still worked. But yeah, it's just like some, like I don't think it's necessarily a cop out what they did to say, oh,
No.
religion is all about control. It's just like, yeah, it's not, it flows logically from what we saw. So it's not like a crazy batshit twist for no reason. It's just, yeah, it's not, it's not earth shattering, but I think that's okay.
Yeah,
I also really like the ending, like the last shot of the butterfly. I thought was very nice. I thought that was very cute.
Okay. So the ending. What's your interpretation of that ending?
I think so initially I took it at face value. I was like, oh, it's a real butterfly that happens to land on her. But the more I thought of it, the less sense that made, because it's the middle of winter after a storm. And then I think also at some point she blinks and it's gone. So I think it's just her maybe her brain, because we kind of talk about like sometimes you're, well, not we, but in the movie, they kind of talk about how your brain sometimes convinces you of things.
In a near-death situation.
Yeah. And so I think it's probably that's what it was, that like her brain was kind of like flickering to her, like, but in kind of a reassuring way to be like, it's okay. And your friend is in a better place,
Yeah. I took it as purely face value, basically, the most like positive interpretation, which is, the same way the conversation happened earlier where she said, when I die, I want to come back as a butterfly and land on my loved one's hands. I took it as, okay, her friend, this is potentially her friend as a spirit. And the fact that the butterfly vanishes, that like, I took that as more positive, like, oh, it really was a supernatural butterfly. So I guess it's her. But then, like, a lot of people are like, well, it's proof that it's religion's bullshit, and she's just imagining a butterfly there. And I would imagine that at the end of the day, it's purposefully ambiguous, which is really the only way to end this story.
Yeah, and I think you don't necessarily, I like that, kind of like you come out of a movie theater and you're like talking about, that's a conversation starter, it's good. I think that was a sweet moment.
Well, this is my favorite type of movie, a movie that is like, has a great hooky premise, and then is exploring it from all these different ways. Like you talked about the gender stuff earlier. That's just one component. This whole, like, they've made this crazy setup to be basically a vessel for a debate about religion, and they are going to have little elements that touch on all sorts of different aspects of religion. So we do get scenes that touch on gender elements. We have the brief discussion of polygamy. We get all of that stuff so that there is plenty to chew on. And there's certainly plenty to chew on when you're a scene chewing actor like Hugh Grant. But and we could get to the performances. How many times have I said "and we can get to" in this podcast?
Let's get to the performances. Hugh Grant is great. His TED Talk about religion was awesome. I thought he was really, really fun. What else can I say? I read that apparently the reason why he got cast is because the directors liked his performance in Cloud Atlas, which I found pretty hilarious. I have not seen it, so it was mostly like, oh, that weird movie? I thought everyone decided to forget that movie ever happened, except apparently for these people who are like, yes, this man. But yeah, I thought he was really good. There's a lot being written about him kind of having his villain era and relishing it. And I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's very accurate. And he is great. I read that it's his first horror movie since the late 80s, where I assume he was like a
He's in,
actor.
Oh my God. I watched it for the first time. The Lair of the White Worm, which is a Ken Russell movie from 1988. It's a very strange movie that I saw for the first time a couple years ago. Fun. Fun.
Yeah,
Very
so
weird.
it definitely is. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like a genre that he is known for. And I kind of dig that for him too. Like he just, trying shit out, experimenting, probably going home at a reasonable hour, having like a nice, late career reblooming. And that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you want for this kind of thing. It's this big, fun character who gets nonstop, like, you could argue like, oh, how clever is this movie, like the stuff they discuss in this movie actually. But then the movie throws it back. He'll give a clever sounding speech, and then the other characters turn it back on him and go, that's actually not as smart as you think it is. So it's like,
yeah.
but the dialogue itself is very cleverly written. And then it's the perfect actor to deliver it. It's the perfect match of actor and material. But everyone's talking about Hugh Grant. I got a question for you. Okay, so it's basically just three people on screen. It's Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Did you recognize what Chloe East is from? She plays the more naive Sister Barnes.
I kept thinking how she looks like Carrie Russell. That was like, she looks like a young Carrie Russell. But I looked up her filmography a while back. But what did you want to talk about? Like, what did you want to mention about her?
I did not. I didn't recognize her. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this woman in anything. She's the best part of the Fabelmans.
Oh,
she's his super religious girlfriend who just wants to fuck.
Oh, I did not remember that at all.
I didn't realize it till after the fact. And last night I was talking to people about the movie, and I'm like, she's the best part of the Fabelmans. And everyone I was with all went, the girlfriend? Because, like, she's only in that movie for, like, 10 minutes. Her character doesn't appear till, like, an hour 15 into the film. But she is so funny in that small role that she's, like... I remember... I bet if you go back... Did we do a Fabelmans episode? No, we absolutely did not, because it was not number one at the box office ever. But I'm sure if you go back to... I don't know if either of us put it on our top 10 of the year. I think I did. But I bet we mentioned her performance because she's so fun in that movie. And I think she's great in this one as well.
Yeah, I do remember her. No, I think she's fantastic. And I really enjoyed the way her character developed because, she's sort of set up as kind of like the naive one, the meek one, and... Obviously, that what you expect for a character to happen is that she grows a spine. So, like, that wasn't surprising necessarily. But in the ways that she did were good. It wasn't like that she ended up being, like, physically assertive. But she also kind of matched him, like, wits-wise. Which, again, the movie does, like, tell her to do it. But the fact that she is capable of doing it, I thought was kind of clever, too. That most of the ways that she kind of finds ways of hurting him come like mentally, like they don't really end up being like they start off from kind of a mental place where she is able to kind of knock him off his balance for a little bit and find like a little opening where she can like do something. And yeah, I thought she was great. And she looks entirely different in the Fabelmans. I am now looking at a picture.
Yeah, it's so she's very fun. Compliment the script of the movie. They do a great job of setting up this arc she's going on while kind of disguising it. We see she's the first person to notice the letter opener, but without them really calling attention to it, we can assume she's too afraid to go for it. Instead, Sophie Thatcher's character goes for it. And we see it's always the Barnes character, Sophie Thatcher, in the first half, who is pushing back, who's verbally sparring with him, who seems to be more aware that they're in danger first, all that stuff. Beyond the fact that the Paxton character is just more sheltered in general with how she's depicted. That I was genuinely surprised when the Barnes character dies. And I felt that maybe part of why my enjoyment dipped is because I felt the loss of that character when she does go. Because I really enjoyed the interplay between the two of them, and I enjoyed Sophie Thatcher's performance as well. But yeah, you don't realize. Oh yeah, you've been set up for this other character to be forced to grow and strengthen. The Barnes character is already a stronger individual. So the arc is Paxton's character, and we've been set up for that, and that needs Barnes to go away for that to happen. It's just a well-structured script.
Yeah, but she doesn't go all the way. I will say that was one, even though I was happy in the moment that it happened as in an audience at the edge of my seat. But when she is kind of resurrects herself to kill Hugh Grant, I was like, oh, there's no way. She was bleeding out of her neck. And it's been like 20 minutes.
It was kind of to the side.
Well, yes, I guess we don't know. He's a religious scholar. He's not a medical scholar, so maybe he didn't hit the right blood vessel. But yeah, it felt very. I think it needed to happen for the audience, obviously. But I was also like, no, she would have been dead. Maybe it's a miracle. Maybe that's what they actually mean at the end of the day. It's a miracle.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I did think for a minute that, we're going to go to this ending where they're both bleeding out and dying. And it's like, okay, do belief or disbelief? What's going to happen when they die? Cut to black. We don't know. I did think for a moment that's what it was going to be, but that's not really what the movie's about. It isn't, while that's the issue he puts it forward as a simplistic belief or disbelief. It is much more about the ways people use belief structures to, control other people.
Right.
He's trying to point that out as a way to then take control of them.
Right. And I think the movie makes the good choice of not making them like crazy literalist believers. They do kind of, they actually engage with him on kind of an adult realistic level of just like, well, yes, like these things are not necessarily realistic. Like this is all cultural, and like belief contains many elements, and we don't necessarily, if you are a believer, you believe the letter of the Bible. It's more about, the community, the spirituality, the fact that, it, helps you become a better person and feel closer to your community. I think that is and I think that's what makes this kind of interesting too, because it felt like Hugh Grant's character kind of was slowly realizing, and I think that was kind of the interesting, sorry, I keep meandering, but basically the movie is structured in a way where he has all the power initially, like oratorially, he's making all the arguments. And then, as you mentioned, eventually they're like, no, you are wrong. And I think the way it's structured and the way Hugh Grant plays his character is that he almost seems like a man who's prepared this very cool thing. And he's like, oh man, I can't wait for you to experience all of this stuff.
I got my playlist set up.
Yeah. Because he also is taking notes about what needs to happen at every hour and all that. And he's not necessarily prepared for the reaction of his audience necessarily. And he is taken aback by some of the ways that they gain on him, kind of, or rhetorically as the movie continues too, and I thought that was also kind of a good touch as well.
Yeah, it's the movie, the moment when the movie really, I think, makes a step up in quality is when we've just gotten this long, very fun, perfectly delivered, well-written rant from the Hugh Grant character that sounds all movie smartness. And then the Sister Barnes character turns around and pokes all the holes in what he said.
Yeah.
Because we know what the bad version of this movie, the pandering version of this movie, it would have been. It's a movie written by, non-religious Hollywood types, where the whole movie is the evil atheist getting all these cheap shots at religion. And then as a pandering gesture at the end, like a fucking angel comes down and saves them. That's the shitty version of this movie. But instead, this is a version of the movie where both sides gets good shots in, good points in. And I found the dialogue from everyone very believable, except I don't know that I believe that Sister Paxton is that knowledgeable about Swamp Thing. I believe that she knows Spider-Man. Swamp Thing feels like a deep cut for her.
I also don't believe... Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just I guess she's a big Alan Moore fan. I don't know.
I was also going to say, how could they not have heard Creep? They're very
young.
Know. That seems unlikely.
That is actually my one biggest complaint about this movie. And this is the one thing that really would have pushed this up. The Lana Del Rey song should have been the credits song.
I was going to say that. I was waiting for that. I was like, Get Free needs to be the final thing. Instead, I guess it is still, it's knocking on heaven's door.
And it's
but
Sophie
it's said
Thatcher
to Falling
singing.
Into You.
It's the actress Sophie Thatcher singing, yeah.
Yes, but it's set to Falling Into You by Mazzy Star. So actually the melody is different. So I think they still did like a little trick, but I was waiting for Lana Del Rey.
Well, from what I gather, I might be wrong about this, but I think Lana Del Rey has entered her super religious born again phase. So it's possible she might not have allowed the rights to be in the movie Heretic.
Oh. Interesting. I did not realize. I know that she married a random guy from Louisiana, which I thought was actually kind of endearing, but I didn't realize it went hand in hand with
she might have been religious for a while, actually.
A conversion.
I'll be honest, I have
Has
not.
She really?
I have not particularly followed the career of Ms. Lana Del Rey. But yes,
well, Lana, one of the commandments says, "Thou shalt not steal," and what thou shalt did. Stole. She stole.
Oh, it looks like she's been religious for a while. But yeah, she stole Creep.
Also, it's like Radiohead did like Fate. I mean, I knew this whole thing. So the moment that he started playing the Hollies and that song and talking about like recycling, I was like, I know what's happening next. But still, it was cute. I really liked it. I liked all the Monopoly talk. I thought that was great.
Yeah. Although I think the Landlord's Game, I was surprised he didn't go deeper into this, because I'm pretty sure the Landlord's Game was purposefully designed as a critique of capitalism. Oh, is it designed to educate users about Georgism, which is an economic ideology? But basically, it was to criticize greedy landlords. I don't know much about Georgism. I'm not a... and so I was surprised, since he goes all about control, I'm surprised he didn't go into that. But I think for both the audience, literally in the scene, and the audience in the movie, the purpose of the Landlord Game was just to show his whole iterative theory.
Right. And I think it still works. Yeah, I think that...
Oh, it definitely works.
I also remember...
It's really fun in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I also love the composition of the shot when he had all the religious texts aligned with the board game boxes. I thought that was really cool. It looked really neat. But
how did he
all of that
describe
stuff.
Islam? He described it as the kooky
he's
offshoot,
like,
and then he had the Bob Ross monopoly. Oh no, that was
no, the Bob Ross
Mormonism
monopoly
was
was
the Bob Ross
Mormonism.
one. Yeah,
He said that like Islam was kind of like the advanced religion, and then it was like Monopoly Extreme or something like that.
Yeah, the one where they had fake credit cards.
Yes, I never played that one. Though I do have Monopoly where you actually build skyscrapers. So instead of hotels, you get these weird actual skyscrapers. I don't know why that did not go well.
I've always been fascinated to imagine. So you have this brand, this popular brand, Monopoly, Clue, whatever. And there are people who work for Parker Brothers, Hasbro, whatever the case, whose job it is to keep coming up with variations so that the thing can keep, so they keep having new versions to sell. But the game is good. The game, like, these games have existed for 100 years because they're already good. So like what is it, this job to sit in a room and be like, oh fuck, okay, how do we improve Clue, you know?
Well, I will say a lot of the stuff, I think most of the monopolies that they make now and the clues are just themed. So I think they just are geared towards the fans of whatever fandom. So I have a Harry Potter clue and a Simpsons clue. But yeah, I guess like, yeah, you know, it's a job.
Who is the murder
I'm sure
victim
it's a fun
in
one.
the Harry Potter clue?
Is
it like Harry's
that's a great
parents?
question. I don't remember.
Harry,
that one
Hermione
was actually
killed your parents with a lead pipe.
So I think actually I meant to also say that the Harry Potter one is the worst one because they do change the rules quite a bit. And so, because they don't want any of the lead characters to be murderers, clearly. So there's a lot of just convoluted mechanics about how I think you are playing technically as Harry or Hermione, but they can't be the victims or the perpetrators. Yeah, it's one that someone gave me and I played once, and then I was like, nah, I like my Simpsons one, which is basically the same, but with Simpsons characters.
Wow, this is the worst thing I've ever heard about the Harry Potter franchise.
Yes.
Truly, I'm sure there's nothing worse. Well, I mean,
Jon.
Veronica.
Oh no, go ahead. No.
I can't see what you're doing. Are you flipping me off right now?
You had something to say. I will let you say it.
No, I what I was gonna say is, what else do we have to say about Heretic? I mean, it's. Do you have anything, another subject you want to jump into?
Oh no, I was gonna do a nice segue, religious segue into Conclave.
So while we are doing a little catch up today, I think the fact that we haven't talked about Heretic as long is in no way a sign that we didn't like it. I think we both really liked it, and let's prove that with a grade.
Yes. All right. 3, 2, 1.
A minus.
B+.
All right.
We did
Heretic. Look, we could go on and on for
hooray for Heretic.
We could go on for 50 minutes about how great Hugh Grant is, but literally every other piece of media discussing this movie is already doing that. Yes, he's very good in this movie. So yeah. Okay, so basically, in our quest to get our minds off things, I've seen a lot of movies recently, including a lot of movies that Veronica had seen previously, but we did not discuss as much because I hadn't seen them. So let's set an order right now so that the listener does not have to accidentally hear about a movie they did not plan on hearing. We can start like you said. I finally saw Conclave. I finally saw Anora, and I finally saw Trap. So,
very exciting.
Let's get into it. Conclave, I liked it.
Isn't it fun?
It's really fun.
Very fun.
I will say this. I saw this on Monday, and I just was like, I need to get my mind off the election. I'll go see Conclave. The worst movie to get my mind off the election. Oh, it's a movie about a dying institution whose times were worst, and the fact that the people in charge of choosing a direction forward are having to forego their progressive ideals so as to attempt to stop a hate monger from taking over. Yes, this will definitely get my mind off the American election. But of course, certainly on purpose, since they repeatedly throughout the movie, the characters themselves compare themselves to an American election. So yeah, I don't think that was an accidental connection.
No, that definitely is true. Though, yeah, should we spoil a little bit or no?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, okay. Let's say all three of these are going to be spoiler discussions. Yeah.
So
Veronica,
I will say first.
Okay.
That one turned out better than our election. I guess.
Yes, it did. I will take. Where's our intersex president?
I know that was such a. I mean, obviously, that's like cool or whatever, but it also felt like such a like a B movie twist almost, and I mean that in the best way possible, where it was just like, oh yeah, like in your staid movie about, like the new pope or whatever, we're gonna have this crazy twist at the end. But it was good. I thought it worked.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that it was like one twist too many, but I don't know. It's so there's another entertainment podcast that I listen to that talks about movies and TV shows and stuff. I know. And I listen to it regularly, even though there's always at least one host on every episode that I disagree with so much. But and they were talking about this movie. I remember one person was like, I wish we learned more about the Catholic Church. I felt like we didn't learn enough about the Catholic Church. And to me, it's like, well, at the end of the day, the movie's not really about the Catholic Church. We don't actually know what happens in this conclave. This is all like theoretical, and it's fun and it's a great setting. But the movie is about the battle for, progressive change in a staid, dying institution. So at that point, like, yeah, I think having it be like, oh, the only way they get a truly revolutionary action is in secret. I think that's a fun ending for the movie. If you look at it like that, and the movie's already set up how, how forgotten the women in the church are. So like, yeah, I liked the final twist. I thought it worked.
I think the final twist works. I will say that I don't necessarily buy the argument that the only way that they can affect change is in secret, because they didn't intentionally affect change at all.
Right.
They don't. It seems like the only way they can affect change is unintentionally. Which, yeah, I mean it's kind of fun. I get it, but I feel like it does. I don't want necessarily these people to be painted in a more activist light, I guess, than they are. Complimentary. No. You know what I mean?
No. To be clear, and I'm not saying this is like the moral of the movie that you can only make this change. I'm saying it's a kind of like it's a dark punchline kind of.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, that this revolutionary action happens in secret and accidentally, and probably no one will ever know it happened.
Yes. Yeah.
Who knows?
I thought to your point about this person complaining about not knowing how the Vatican works from this movie. I actually kind of relate to that. And the thing that attracted me to this movie, because when I saw this movie, it was opening day. So I didn't know necessarily what a crowd pleaser this was, or like where it goes and how actually unserious it is. I mean, not unserious. Unserious might be a worse thing than what I intend to say, but rather
how kind of fun and campy it is.
Yes. Yeah. And so what drew me to it,
pulpy, not campy.
Yes.
I feel like campy would imply by accident. Pulpy, like they're going for kind of a fun thriller.
Yeah, it's more of a caper vibe than you expect, I think. And which is good. I enjoyed that. But what I actually did kind of want to get more, or was hoping to get more of how kind of the machinations of that conclave work. And I think we got actually a good amount of it, especially at the beginning. But I would not have necessarily objected to us kind of like learning more about the ins and outs of this institution, specifically the Vatican. I don't even mean the Catholic Church, because I am kind of interested in how institutions work in general. I watch all of those Frederick Weissman documentaries that are 6 hours long about, I don't know, how Berkeley works or whatever. And I find them fascinating, but I understand that is not what they were going for.
I wouldn't be surprised if the novel goes into more details about just life in the Vatican.
Yeah, because they all kind of knew what was supposed to happen, you know? There were all these very clear rules and rituals, and I like all of those things. I like, not that I like the specific rituals, but rather I like seeing all the rituals. I like sort of learning the history around all of these things. So it could have been cool, and to the extent that we got it, I thought it was pretty cool. I did feel like they were breaking kind of their own rules a little bit that they've set up, but obviously that's for dramatic purpose, and that's allowed.
I think I'd want more details if I didn't know that no one knows that this is all theory, you know?
Oh, you mean like, no one knows what happens inside the conclave?
Yeah, this isn't based on like reporting. They still keep this stuff secret. This is just like a good guess of how it works. Like all those rules about like, okay, well, after the third vote, we do an instantaneous fourth vote. Like that's just, you know,
so
creative
you
license.
Don't think, and this is something I did not look into, so you don't think there's actually a very strict and rigid protocol they have to follow?
No, I'm sure there is, but the filmmakers don't know what it is.
Oh, interesting. I guess, yeah, I'm not sure whether there are sources around that stuff or not. Maybe. So no pope has ever spoken about it? No cardinal has ever said exactly what goes on in there? I know obviously they can't disclose the discussion, but I would have thought that, you know, there is some like source about what happens actually, like what is supposed to happen each time, you know?
Like in Wikipedia, there's stuff like it is considered poor form to campaign for the position of pope. Like, there is like, I just don't, the voting on the afternoon of the first day, one ballot may be held, but it is not required. If a ballot, you know what? There are more details here than I actually expected. So I don't know, but
I mean, that's like only like tangential, but it is all to say that to me, I'm the kind of viewer who would have kind of relished the protocol. I'm the person who loved season 5 of Lost because we learned a lot about the Dharma Initiative. So, like,
and shit actually happened in that season.
That's true, but all that stuff is catnip for me. What did you?
Okay, I take it back. There is a good amount of knowledge that is here.
And we could all read it. What did you? So now that you've seen it, I think actually yes, this is the kind of movie where a lot of shit happens and it's crazy sometimes and it's crowd pleasing and many times. What did you think about the point in the movie where there's a terrorist attack that happens outside the Vatican and how the cardinals respond to it and that whole plot line?
I don't mind it. It was visually beautiful. It was set up. I'm sure the novel goes into a little more detail about it. I think it's fun. You can interpret it as God actually stopping. What's Ray Fiennes' character's name?
Lawrence, I think.
Like God actually stopping Lawrence from being the Pope, because I believe at that point it seems like Lawrence is about to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think it's fun. I didn't mind it at all. I liked the argument afterwards. I thought the whole thing worked. I think some people, I'm getting the impression that some people thought it was same as the intersex twist. It was like a little too much, too big. But I liked it. What about you?
I thought it was kind of ham-fisted.
Which part of it?
Mostly he doesn't get to become Pope because of this extraneous thing, I think is good. I like it. But the fact that it is like so on the nose, oh, these are Muslim terrorists and we are going to have this discussion that's basically kind of like a very, 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 very thinly veiled, like, reference to the types of discussions that happen every day about, like whose religion is the best and how these people are bad and those people are bad because of whatever religions they have. And like, I, to be honest, I found it unnecessary. Like I didn't need it at all. And I thought that was kind of the weakest part of the movie because to the extent for the most part, I thought it was actually pretty muted in its commentary on religion. And I found that to be more interesting than the discussion that ensued as a result of that plot point, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I again, like looking at it purely as, I don't know, the whole thing is about like the fight for like any kind of like progress, like the fact that there is something that seems to give the forces of regression an excuse to push back and use fear to motivate their voting bloc. I thought it worked. Plus, I just thought the explosion looked cool.
Yeah, no, the movie looks amazing. I mentioned that last time we talked. The colors chosen for it are beautiful. You kind of look at every frame and it has this beautifully composed, curtains or their gowns and all the people kind of moving in unison in many ways. And it has like a very cool visual style. That I really love the way that initially when the Pope dies, there are all these shots of them preparing the room and sealing the room and all that. I loved all that shit. I thought that was great.
Yeah. I like the old Pope's old calculator.
Yeah. The old Pope seemed to be fun. I mean, clearly,
he seemed like a good dude.
Yeah, he seemed like
when it comes to popes, judged on the standard of popes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the current guy. He seems cool comparatively, I suppose, and so there is some progress. So that's nice, I guess. But yeah, this is not obviously my religion or anything, so I don't know that I have anything super deep to say about Catholicism. But yeah, I thought it was really, again, the thing that surprised me the most about this movie, though, is the fact of how crowd pleasing it was and how the audience reacted to it. I was very, very surprised pleasantly as to how engaged everyone in the theater that I saw it in were. Was that something that you experienced too?
I saw it in a matinee, so it was a very small house. I liked it.
Oh, were you applauding at the end?
Oh my God, I was going crazy. No, I was not. But speaking of progress, why don't we progress to the next movie?
Wow.
Like that? Wasn't that good? These are all movies that if we didn't have the format of our show, totally would deserve full episodes. But
yeah, those would be the movies we would talk about exclusively. I don't think for most of these movies
we got to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes. Well, I guess we're connecting to Middle America. Isn't that what the takeaway from this election is?
You got to get out of our bubble of good movies.
Exactly.
But you know what? With Heretic, we showed that sometimes we can really like a movie and not have as much to talk about it.
Well, I mean, also, I think it was in the expediency of getting to talk about all these other movies and not.
That's true.
And me being able to go to dinner.
Talking about. Yes. Okay. Well, let's jump to another, probably certainly one of my most anticipated movies of the year. And guess what? I liked it quite a bit. It's Anora.
Yay.
Sean Baker's Anora. Wow. Did we really think there was a chance I was not going to like it? I have loved every one of his movies. I've still yet to see Starlight or Starlit, his first movie.
Oh yeah.
But I loved the premise. I love Mikey Madsen. I rewatched Scream 5 shortly after, and she's so fun in that movie. That's the first time I saw her. Yeah, I forgot. What did you say about Anora when you had seen it? I think I kept probably trying to hush you because I didn't want anything spoiled for me.
I don't think I said anything spoilerific. I was just saying that how impressed I was with the sense of specific place and community that Sean Baker put out there, despite, I think, not being a Soviet emigre living in Brooklyn. I as someone who is, I felt that it was fairly accurate. And he captured a lot of the little mannerisms and the little sort of, like hierarchies within that community. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was great. Our friend is in it for a little bit.
Oh, yes, Sebastian. I saw him. I got a good laugh out of that. It's people, critics have always said how good... when we switched, we had some tech problems, people.
Oh boy.
And now oh no, I can't do that. Okay. Shit. Sorry. 1 minute.
Oh no. Panic.
I'm talking to you on the phone, but here, I just gotta make it so I'm not getting text messages because now my computer is recording sound. This is all very exciting. Anyway, what was I saying? Critics have always said, with movies like Tangerine, how honest and lived in his depictions of these insular communities have been. But having never been a trans sex worker before, what do I know? So it's interesting to hear someone who has a little bit of a closer connection to the world he's depicting in this one, that you agree that it does feel authentic.
Yeah. That was literally, I think, my review. I don't know what it's like to be a trans person. I don't know what it's like to just be poor in the South, but I do know what it's like to be a Russian emigre or a Soviet emigre to New York. And I was impressed by this. I thought it was so great. I think it also just stems from him actually working with people from those communities to some extent. Like, a lot of the actors in this movie are relatively famous Russian actors. I didn't know them, but I looked at their filmographies, and they have, all have like sizable filmographies back in Russia or.
Yeah, it seems like that Igor guy, Yura Borisov, is a big star in Russia, right?
Yeah. And so it's kind of cool that he reached out to them, and maybe they were part of creating their characters. I guess I don't know what his process is, Sean Baker's, when he makes these movies. But yeah, it just felt like, he has a very kind of curious and respectful lens that he points at these communities. It never feels leering. It never feels condescending. It never feels like a curio. It feels more just like, I want to show these people on screen because they haven't really been shown on screen before. And I think that's really cool.
So it looks like, I'm reading on the Wikipedia, that the inspirations came partly from his time working as an editor, editing wedding videos. And he edited a lot of Russian-American wedding videos in New York.
Oh.
And then it also says he hired Andrea Werhan, the actress and writer who wrote the memoir Modern Whore, about her time as a sex worker. He hired her as the creative consultant on this movie.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, I mean, he puts the work in to get that lived-in feeling in these movies. Let's talk about the performances. Mikey Madsen definitely getting the biggest attention. She is pretty darn great. This is about as good of a star-making role as you can get.
Yeah, true. And she is so good on the pole, man. Like,
yeah, great dancer.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I was like, I did not think anyone could best J-Lo, but there's one thing that she does on that pole that I was like, oh my God, is that physically possible? I thought she was very, very good. And especially towards the end, when we kind of see her vulnerability, I thought she played that so well, because she starts off a bit of a cipher, you're not entirely sure how emotional.
Well, we just see her at work for the first batch of scenes.
Yes.
So it's her like putting on a character.
Yes, but she's a cipher also just in the way that she relates to what's his face?
Ivan. Vanya.
Vanya. Yeah, like, so like it, and I like how it's not entirely clear like at what point she kind of actually chooses to fall for him, or she lets herself fall for him. And I thought that was played really well. And then when at the end where she because you think she will have the moment where she stands up to them and it's like, oh yeah, you want a divorce? Well, give me $5 million or whatever. And her basically crumbling when Vanya's mom basically tells her you're not going to get anything is so heartbreaking, and she plays it so well. It was great. She was so good.
Yeah, it's similar. Like Heretic did this a bit, but really reminded me at the end of I Saw the TV Glow, in the ways this movie does a bunch of head fakes towards potential endings that are the more like Hollywood ending before, like, both this and I Saw the TV Glow had moments where I'm like, why is this movie not done yet? until we get that final reveal of like.
That no
really
spoilers! No spoilers!
Home.
No spoilers!
Oh, I'm not going to spoil. I saw the TV Glove. But yeah, no. The ending is like there was a while where I was really like, are we doing like a love story with Igor? Like I like the performance and the character, but it's like, is that really where the story's going? And then no, not really. And then we get that final moment where we see like, oh yeah, she's completely devastated by this. Yeah. I mean, I don't think she ever really like fell for Vanya. I mean, is she 22 or 23?
Yeah, I think she did. I think she allowed herself to, despite knowing better.
I think she brought her wall down, and I think she allowed herself, she tricked herself into believing this is actually real.
Oh yeah.
And she tricked herself into believing that she could like with this life, of course she could love this guy. But like in the same way, like when you're 22, when you're very young, when you're, a very young person, it's one of your first relationships and you're like, oh, that all those little red flags are fine because this is actually great and this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the vibe I got.
I think so. I think that is like that. But then I think eventually she does truly fall for him to an extent. And maybe it is, like you said, maybe it is more that she is kind of enjoying this life and letting herself kind of not pay attention to the rest of it. But I genuinely felt like when they're in that courtroom, once she finds him in the strip club and after, I felt that she is trying to resurrect, I think, a love that she thought that they had.
Yeah. To be clear, I think at like that age, I think these things are not really mutually exclusive.
True, yeah.
Like this, like a falling in love in a week. I just, whatever the case, I love the performance by Mark Edelstein. Edelstein.
That's how we say it in Russian.
Vanya is one of the worst people who've ever been put on screen. Tremendously so. His backflip onto the bed is maybe one of the best moments in 2024 cinema.
He's so cute. I don't blame her at all. He's the Russian Chalamet. He's even cuter than Chalamet, I would say.
But he is such a putz.
Oh, I mean, he is a putz, but he's cute, and he's like the most off-putting thing about him, and maybe don't take it personally, John, is the fact that he makes her watch and play video games, which I think is the most obnoxious thing.
I've never made you watch me play video games.
As a player of video games, if you have,
the most off-putting thing is that it seems like Mark Edelstein has never played video games in his fucking life.
Oh, really?
I don't know what he's doing with his thumbs. There is no video game currently on the market where you constantly change control schemes seemingly at random.
Wow.
1 minute you're using joysticks, the next you've moved your hand to another position on the controller. Look, here, you know what? I have a controller right here. This is... to the camera. He is playing like the entire, every scene in the movie where he's playing video games. He's like constantly flipping his controller around. It is just completely nonsensical. Same with like the Lana Del Rey song in Heretic. That's my one flaw in a near perfect movie. But I was going to say something else.
I like that very specific complaint. I take it.
Gosh, I can't remember. I feel like I had something else to say. Oh, I loved how his dad was also a putz. I loved how you could see the exact same dynamic in his parents.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I also liked his mom. She's like, come on. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's a reasonable Russian woman. I know these women.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, if I think we could assume that if Anora actually did get married to him, and then, 25 years from now, their son tried to marry a stripper, she would have reacted the exact same way that Vanya's mother did.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a wonderful movie. It's really, really excellent.
I do want to highlight Yura Borisov, though, the guy who
Igor.
plays Igor. He's so fantastic. I think actually my favorite scene in the movie is at the end after she signs the annulment, where they're just hanging out, just the two of them in Vanya's house. And that conversation they have, I thought that was great. I loved all the stuff with him and I forget the Armenian guys, Garnick, and who's the other one? And Toros?
Toros.
Yeah, those guys. That whole thing could have gone so stereotypically, like these Russian rube gangster types. And they're just going to be like violent assholes and stuff. But I actually liked kind of how we got to know them throughout and how they, they're more complicated than that. I feel like they're more sensitive than that. I love that Toros just kept leaving like christenings and to
that is one of the funniest scenes.
I thought all of that is so good. I think like Yura Borisov was so great. Another character that I was like, I know the kind of like the boy that like became this man, like I've known kids like this. And I don't know. I thought that was another great performance.
So, did this won the Palme d'Or at Cannes?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So the president of the jury this year was Greta Gerwig.
I know.
And it's funny because one movie that this reminded me of structurally was Barbie. No, was Mistress America, the 2015 Noah Baumbach co-written Greta Gerwig movie. Just because like the first act is structured like a regular movie, and then suddenly the speed slows down, and it becomes just like a screwball comedy all set in one night.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of Mistress America, and I once again had one other thing I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it was. Oh, well. I do remember. About that scene you were talking about where it's just Igor and Annie. What do you take from the fact that that she repeatedly uses the F slur throughout the movie? Because there is another movie that I saw this week that I'm going to talk about briefly later in the podcast, The Sweet East, that both stars like the main character is a young woman, and both feature the main character repeatedly using a slur that is just no longer socially acceptable, seemingly just to kind of reinforce that character's rough edges. Is that kind of like, is there anything more to it than that?
It felt to me like she was just trying to get a rise out of him. Like she has this idea of him, I think, from probably being in that community of like, I know what you kind of are. I know what people like you are like. And the fact that he's being she feels like she is better than him, I think. But he does not let her see that, like, or not. He doesn't feel that way, and he doesn't want to cede that to her. And so she, I think, is resorting to using that word in order to kind of like lower him in status, I think, and to belittle him. And clearly that doesn't really work.
She assumes that's the thing that would anger him the most, maybe.
Yes, I think that. And so, yeah, I think their dynamic was of such that, they're immigrants who are newer immigrants, and she clearly is from a more assimilated immigrant background. And there's this dynamic where I think the more assimilated you are, the more likely you are to look down on people who have arrived later to whatever country it is. And I think that's kind of how she looks at him in many ways. And the fact that he doesn't necessarily feel lesser than she is maybe is something that kind of irks her in a way where she is actually trying to get a rise out of him in that way. That's how I read it. But yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Well, no. I just something.
Now I guess I don't know if
especially...
you are giving me the finger.
No, it's just something that I noticed, and there are when we talk about this later movie, there's a few weird connections between some of the movies we saw. But to speed things along, yeah, Anora, wonderful, loved it.
Thumbs up.
I'm sure we will be discussing it again at our end of the year episode.
Oh no!
So
spoilers.
Let's move on to a movie that I do not think will be on my top 10 of the year list.
Oh no!
I'm so sorry to say. Well, I will say, if it stopped midway through, it probably would. I am talking about the movie Trap, starring Josh Hartnett, M. Night Shyamalan's movie.
Blast from the past.
A great movie for the first half. Okay, so you saw this summer when it came out.
Yes.
Right? What the fuck happens in what? I've never seen a movie where I more can definitively point to, and here's the part where it becomes bad for the rest of the movie. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, we're spoiling it. Trap. He's trapped. He's a serial killer. It's a serial killer trapped in a concert with his daughter, and he has to escape all the police who knows that the serial killer's there but doesn't know his identity, and he has to use his mischievous serial killer wiles to get through, and it's basically a level of Hitman, but a movie, and it's great. And then they just leave the concert. And the movie is about a father-daughter relationship, but the daughter leaves the movie so that the director's actual daughter can suddenly become the main character. A character who has had no dialogue up until this point. She is now the protagonist for 20 minutes, and then she leaves the movie. Then the last 10 minutes are all analyzing a relationship that up to this point has not mattered or been inspected in any way. I love Alison Pill. I love the idea that M. Night Shyamalan wanted to make a showcase for his daughter. That's all wonderful. What the fuck happens in the second half of this movie? Am I crazy?
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think to an extent, some of these switches work. Like, I don't think Shyamalan's daughter is a good actress. And actually, if we are being real, a good singer. But
whoa, you're not playing the Lady Raven album?
No, it has left my rotation. But I do think that part was still compelling to me. But yeah, all the stuff with Alison Pill, I enjoyed this movie. Like, I had a great time with it. I'm not saying it's great. But I really enjoyed it. But I don't think it makes sense, that Alison Pill, based on the evidence that she had, could suspect her husband of being a serial killer. You know what I mean? The only evidence that she seems to have is the fact that she found a ticket. Or no, she leaves a ticket that he has bought in a scene of a crime.
She has seen him lie really easily. She knows he's been staying out longer than he should. At first, she thinks it's an affair, but then she starts noticing he smells like medical fluids.
I guess.
And then
that
she
seems
tracks
so
him.
flimsy.
Then she tracks him to an abandoned house, and she's like, why else? Why would he be here? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care
but
how
the fact
she
that
figured it out.
the last segment of it is her just explaining all of this convoluted logic that led us to the beginning of the movie. I was like, this doesn't make sense. But also it doesn't need to if you just don't explain it. The more he explained stuff about how they figured out it was him and like all of that stuff, the more I was just like, okay, this is more silly than I guess it needs to be. You know what I mean?
Well, I was watching this with people, and I was having this argument where they were like, if M. Night's daughter was a better actress, and I would look up her name, but since we're insulting her, maybe we shouldn't.
Her name is I know what her name is. I can say it.
Shanika?
Salika.
Like they were like, if she was a better actress, this would work, and I don't think it would. And you're saying like, if the logic with Alison Pill's character, if that had made sense, it would have worked. And again, I don't think it would, because Alison Pill's a wonderful actress. But the thing is, none of this matters. This is not what the movie was about. This was a movie about a father. It's an absurd heightening of a thing of like a parent recognizing, do they care more about their own personal well-being and their quote-unquote career, or do they care more about their child? That's what the movie's about. Right. So for it to just completely ditch the daughter, like, and he brings up like, oh, I did love my family at the end. Why is the daughter gone from the movie? This should have ended with him either sacrificing himself to help his daughter, or
being killed by his daughter,
or selfishly betraying his daughter to maintain his own escape. That's where the movie should have ended, with some version of that conflict.
No, that's true. That's true. Though, again, I did like the stuff with Lady Raven at their house. I thought that had a good amount of suspense, and I feel like what you are saying could still work along with that, because that could still be the catalyst for him. I don't know, maybe choosing to kill Salika and accidentally killing his daughter, or, like sacrificing himself in some way to save his daughter. But yeah, I agree. None of that. The only reason why I bring up the Alison Pill stuff is that it's like such a letdown to have that be the final part of the movie, because them literally sitting down at a table and explaining why this movie is supposed to make sense, is not necessary. Like, it's just stops any momentum that it had. So yeah,
I would guess that structurally, the way he views it as, it's a series of traps, and the movie changes who is making the trap and who is in the trap. First he's in a trap, and then Lady Raven is in his trap, and then it seems like his wife is in her trap, but then she's actually put him in a trap. But it's just like that. After the movie, I was like, I asked my the friends I saw it with, I was like, what's the name of the daughter's character? And they all said Riley. And I'm like, yeah, what's the name of the Alison Pill's character? And no one knew what her name was, because she's just suddenly the main protagonist of the last. But the first half is so much fun, and Josh Hartnett's so much fun in it. So it's really a letdown. Also, it's a
he's a good dad. I will say that. Josh Hartnett's character is a good dad.
I loved all the stuff about him just being a dad at a concert. All that stuff was great. And with the added twist that, oh yeah, also he's a serial killer. It's such a fun premise. Yeah. And such a fun premise to explore that idea of what are we do what is more important, yourself or your child? But then it's just not that at the end.
Yeah.
So, and again, to be fair, we were watching this movie. We had turned off the election results and started watching this movie. So to be fair to Trap, I was not in a good mood. So, but the first half successfully got my mind off things. Second half did not. Just made me angry.
I think what M. Night Shyamalan needs is like a co-writer or someone who, because he comes up with these great concepts, and a lot of the time, they kind of just fizzle out and don't really have the conclusion that would match the setup. And it would be interesting if he had like some person who he could be like, okay, it's a dad. He's trapped. He's a serial killer attending a concert, but it's actually a secret operation to catch him. And then this person would be like, and what happens then? And then he would tell him his other ideas for the movie. And he'd be like, no, we'll do this other thing. So he needs like someone, an assistant, like a third act assistant almost, I think that could also be a fun job because he does have fun ideas. But I feel like many of them fizzle, unfortunately.
Okay. So I think I think that's our little 2024 wrap up for the time being. Let's get back to how we continue a regular episode. Veronica, you seen anything else recently?
I did. I saw a bunch of stuff. After our previous episode about Pulp Fiction, you know what I did? I watched Jackie Brown. It's really, really good. It's still so fantastic. I love Robert Forrest in that movie. It's just like his eyes, his weathered face, just fantastic. I mean, everyone is great. This time around, I was also just really loving Robert De Niro's stoner performance that I feel like I never appreciated it before, but he's such a funny stoner, and he's really, really good. I mean, this movie is fantastic. 5 stars if you haven't seen it for some reason. Also, probably the best Tarantino soundtrack. So if you're into that, for the first time, I watched Army of Darkness, which I've never seen before.
Have you seen the other Evil Deads?
Yes, this is the last one I have yet to see of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It was so fun. I knew that this was supposed to be the funny one. But I did not realize to what extent this is just a very silly comedy. And all the physical effects are so fun. All of those skeletons and monsters are so great and silly. Such a great movie. I mean, some of the jokes probably don't hold up, but just I kept thinking, okay, so this is 92. People are expecting kind of a horror sequel, and this is what they get. And that also just made
insane.
me chuckle. I finally saw The Substance, which I think I enjoyed quite a bit. I know a lot of people in my life, I think including yourself, who did not like it as much. But I liked it. I just thought it was I just thought it dragged a little. Yes.
And I wish I saw it in a bigger audience. I think I said that last time.
Yeah, I saw it in a full theater, and that was a fun experience. I thought all the body horror stuff was great. Speaking about kind of composition again, I thought the movie looked amazing. The way that she frames things and the way the colors look was fantastic. It was beautiful to look at. And I think both the 2 leads and Dennis Quaid are very, very fun. And so, that was really good. And then I saw Juror Number 2 in a movie theater, as should everyone. Please see a movie for adults in a movie theater to show Warner Brothers that there's still an audience for movies for adults in movie theaters.
You know what? I think what was I just listening to? I was listening to I think it was Blank Check. I forget which podcast it was, but they were talking about how Twisters bombed in overseas internationally, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's because there are no tornadoes really overseas." But first off, there are tornadoes in Europe, and secondly, the first Twister made a tons of money all over the world, and they were pointing out on the show, I think it was Blank Check, I think it was in the episode where they talked about Trap, which is why I was listening to it. They were pointing out that just like Universal handled the marketing domestically of Twisters, and Warner Brothers handled it internationally.
Oh God!
And apparently just completely dropped the ball. Like, what the fuck is going on with Warner Brothers this year?
Yeah, I think everything is a write-off for them these days. Yeah, this one was supposed to be straight to video, which I also don't understand why. It has this caliber of actors. It's probably Clint Eastwood's last movie. It's October or November. Like, it's a perfect time for a movie like this. And I thought it was really good. It's like, it is a kind of movie we would get in the 90s with pretty high frequency, but in a good way.
It feels like just from what I know about it, it feels like the book John Grisham didn't write.
Yeah, I mean, it is really fun, and I, as someone who used to read a lot of John Grisham novels, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was very well done, way better than it had any reason to be. So please, if you can, see it in a theater, and fuck David Zaslav, I guess.
Yesterday, it was my friend's birthday. She works in animation, so she had a bunch of people go to the New Beverly to see their like cartoon club on Saturday mornings, where they show a ton of cartoons, and they showed an old Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon, and at the end everyone's having a great time, and at the end my friend leans over and goes, "Boy, would have loved to see a movie where that guy sues Acme. That would have been so fun, huh?"
Yeah.
I was watching that cartoon, and the whole time I'm like picturing what that movie probably was, because I bet the cartoon we saw is one of the main ones they would have drawn from, and it's just like,
yeah, that was such a fun premise too. Such a bummer. And the last thing I saw was A Real Pain, which is the new Jesse Eisenberg movie with Kieran Culkin, and Jennifer Grey. Yes, the woman from Dirty Dancing. I did not recognize her.
Jennifer Beal is Flashdance, and I know that from the Hanukkah song.
Yes.
Flashdance or Jennifer Beal.
Yeah, so Jennifer Grey, she looks great. Good for you, Jennifer Grey. But I really love that movie too. I guess sort of similarly to Anora, it is a movie about people who more resembling myself, my background. And it felt really, again, just like very well observed. The characters were great. It was funny. Kieran Culkin is great, but I think also Jesse Eisenberg is fantastic in it, giving a fairly understated performance. And he's turning out to be a really good director, too. So if you're
is this his first movie, or
no? It's his second movie. He's done one previously that I have not seen that has a very long name. It was like something to do when you're done saving the world or something like that. It was called.
Oh, right. It was he and Julianne Moore.
I have not seen it, but maybe now I will.
It's Julianne Moore and a younger actor. I'm not gonna look it up. Doesn't matter.
I don't have the internet, so I can't. But anyway, it was really good. And also, I guess for the history buffs, apparently the first movie shot inside a concentration camp. So take that, Jonathan Glazer.
Filming across the street like a coward.
Exactly.
Just because that's the entire point of your movie.
Oh,
come on.
boo-hoo. How convenient.
Cool. Is that so? That's it.
That is it.
We probably, if we wanted this episode to do longer, we should have added You Seeing Substance to our catch up. But
it's okay. I do actually genuinely have to go.
Yes. Well, we talked about most of the movies I caught up on, but I also saw Cuckoo, the Hunter Schafer movie. Really fun, a really fun premise, but I think it has a really interesting, creepy, gross idea that it kind of it gets distracted with some stuff. I'm going to say something I never thought I'd say in a million years. Should have had less Dan Stevens. And you know how much I love Dan Stevens. But when you finally find out what's actually going on, it's I think this character is less essential than the movie makes it. Anyway, then I saw The Sweet East, which was a movie that played at Cannes in 23.
Oh.
And this is basically it's a not epistolary, picaresque. It is at its core a picaresque story to your when you read Huckleberry Finn in elementary school or middle school, and your English teacher defined picaresque novel for you. This is exactly that. It is a low status character having a series of episodic satiric adventures. So this is a teen girl who goes on a field trip to Washington, D.C. with her class. But then there is a Pizzagate style shooting at the pizza place they're at. And she runs away with a bunch of crust punks and ends up on a voyage throughout America, where she meets the likes of Simon Rex playing a
porn star,
history professor who's also a Nazi, and Jeremy O'Harris, the playwright and actor, and Aya Debris as a couple of incredibly pretentious filmmakers who are making a movie starring Jacob Elordi as a British actor.
Oh, wow. That's a stacked cast.
Yes. Yeah, I saw the trailer. I'm like, I got to see this. It is very much, it's Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, if it was set in modern day and Mark Twain low-key was super horny for Huckleberry Finn. The main character of this is an actress named Talia Ryder, who I was not that familiar with. She apparently was in an Olivia Rodrigo music video, or second Rodrigo. Oh no, that happened before the pod when we were talking about Olivia Rodrigo. But
still call us.
But she, this actress is great. Talia Ryder. This is I don't know how many people have seen this movie, but this is as much a movie, a star-making role and performance as Anora is, but watching Anora and The Sweet East and Heretic, those are all movies about young women. In this case, a teenager. I think she's supposed to be 17, and made by male filmmakers. And this was the only one where I was like, man, this camera really wants to fuck this main character. Part of it is so many of these little episodic things end with, and then the character is willing to kind of forego their ideals because they really want to have sex with this teenager. And there's just also, there's a lot of, it's shot on film and it's beautiful. There's just, if they keep putting her in different cute outfits and then just having shots of her dancing through the woods. And I'm not saying this necessarily as a criticism. There's just a kind of slightly fetishistic feel to as if the character was kind of like a doll that just keeps getting dressed up and moved along.
Interesting.
But again, I think she's excellent in the movie. I was still thinking about the movie afterwards. I love the ending. I think the Simon Rex section is great. He gives a wonderful performance. I think the whole end of the movie is great. There's a section in the middle towards the end that I found a little dull. It didn't fully grab me. The satire didn't fully grab me. I wish I liked it more, but I did think it was a really fun watch. It's worth watching. I think Talia Ryder's giving a great lead performance. She has an opening musical number. I wish the movie had more musical numbers. I love the song. Yeah.
Can I just mention that I looked up Talia Ryder and all the pictures. First of all, her last name is spelled like Winona's, and she fucking looks like Winona Ryder. At least like in the pictures. That's crazy.
I guess she's like she was like a child Broadway actress. Like she was in like Matilda and stuff.
Right. I know that there's no relation, but it's kind of wild that they have the same last name.
She does kind of look. Yeah.
And she looks like Winona Ryder in certain pictures. That's good for her.
Yeah, and I thought I had something else to say about the movie, but I don't remember what it is. So I guess we'll leave it there. A qualified endorsement for.
I'm actually intrigued by what you said. I might check it out.
I'd like to hear what you think about it.
All right, maybe next time.
I remember what I was going to say. The movie. Major sections of the movie take place right by the hometown where I grew up. Aww. And it was so much of the movie takes place in Mercer County, New Jersey. And I was very surprised when suddenly when the Simon Rex character is like, oh yeah, when they're like, we're going to Trenton, and I was like, what? And then they're like, and then the Simon Rex character in a diner in Trenton, I don't know if it where they actually filmed the scene, but he's like, oh yeah, I live right off the Delaware near on the Jersey side near New Hope. I was like, oh my god.
See, that's your Anora. This is like, these are my people. Anora.
Felt less, and you have a Sean Baker alum in Simon Rex. But it felt less true to me, and just the fact that at least in my time in Mercer County, New Jersey, I ran into very few roving gangs of Nazis having feuds with crust punks. So at least that was my lived experience.
Wow!
I might have missed
it.
Wow. Anyway, we've talked about what, like 33 movies today?
Yes, that was a lot. At least 33.
So, apologies to our friends Tom fucking Bane, Tom Hardy.
Oh, I was like, who's our friend Tom?
Kelly, who's the writer director of it? Kelly Venom, Kelly Marcel. Apologies. As part of self-care, we chose not to see Venom 3.
Yeah.
We promise. Look, we saw fucking Deadpool and Wolverine. We saw Joker 2. Give us a break.
Yes.
Give us a break. We broke format for one episode. Come on.
Exactly. But also, I would say we genuinely had hopes, as you can check out in the previous episode, that Heretic would be number 1. So,
look,
you know.
It could have been worse. Heretic is currently vying for the number 2 slot with a family film about a Christmas pageant starring Dave Holmes as the dad. So we could have been watching a children's Christmas family film. So I think I would have taken Venom over. No offense to Dave Holmes, just not in the mood I was in.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, it's been great.
It's been great. We had 0 tech problems.
Yeah, this is one of our best, smoothest episode yet.
Let's call it right there. What do we do? What are we watching next?
Well, I will.
When we follow the rules, I promise.
We will. And this is pending my internet connection, so all this list might not work. But one of the options is My Fair Lady.
Oh, okay.
One of our options, oh no, my internet is dead, so I don't know anything else. So it could be My Fair Lady, or it could be 4 other movies.
And I could force the listener to listen as I try to look up that information. Well, wait, do you have the link to that stuff? You
It's
can text
fine,
it to me?
John.
It's fine.
No
All
one
right,
cares.
all right.
We'll surprise them. It'll be great.
This episode has somehow reached the length of the Pulp Fiction episode.
Oh, boy.
So let's call it a day there. My parents finally looked up the show on YouTube.
Oh, no.
And they looked, because I said we were talking about Pulp Fiction, and I was on the phone with them, and I heard my dad, my mom was holding the phone, and I heard my dad behind him go, "Oh my God, this episode's so long."
This is the kind of feedback we need.
Yeah. All right, let's call it a day. Toot
Bye.
to the toot.
Toot to the toot. I'm waving. Bye.
I'm waving too. You can't tell, but I am. I swear.
Bye. Oh, or giving the finger. We don't know.
Both.